You need to get a divorce right now. I examined your daughter, and actually. After prefacing that this was advice from a friend, Ethan said something that surprised me. His words left me shaken and unable to hide my agitation. What do you mean? Ethan, a pediatrician. We were at the hospital where he works, but not in an examination room, just a private room. It was probably a place to store unused equipment and such. After leading me into that cluttered space, he once again advised me to get divorced. Not only that, but he also revealed a shocking truth about my daughter, Sophia. As I listened in disbelief, Ethan's expression tightened as if he had made up his mind. From here on, what I have to say might be unpleasant for you, but I want you to listen calmly. A few days later, I submitted the divorce papers to a lawyer's office, just as he had said. Because of a scuffle with my husband at that time, I had to hurriedly move out, but perhaps it was a purification ritual for a new journey. My name is Emily, and I live with my husband Michael and our daughter Sophia. Actually, Sophia and I are not blood related. She is the child of Michael's ex-wife. I met Michael through a friend's introduction when I was 29 and he was 33. We had similar tastes in movies and food, hit it off, and eventually got married. People around us kept saying things like, marrying someone with a kid is gonna be tough, but I made up my mind and accepted it. My body is unable to have children due to a gynecological illness. I thought having a child was just a pipe dream, but then I got to have Sophia, an adorable little girl, as my daughter. I was so happy about that. Sophia, who was only 3 years old at the time of our marriage, had almost no memories of her birth mother. Michael said that his ex-wife had passed away due to poor postpartum recovery. So Sophia thought of me as her real mother and grew attached to me. While I was happy about Sophia's affection, I also felt guilty towards the ex-wife, so we decided to visit her grave together every year. At those times, Sophia always says, "I'm so lucky to have two moms." Sophia. Sophia is a kind and wonderful child, and I squeezed her little hand, determined to make her happy no matter what. And this year marked the 5th grave visit, with Sophia now 8 years old. As usual, Sophia and I prayed. "Hey, let's go already!" Michael called out to us from a distance in the cemetery. In recent years, I've started to feel that he's a bit cold, trying to finish up and leave on his own even though it's a visit to his ex-wife's grave. I wondered if it was because he's a man and therefore more detached. But still, isn't that too cold? He's still kind to me, so the gap feels even greater. After getting married, I realized that he tends to neglect children. He works as a researcher at a pharmaceutical company and is busy. It seems he left all the child rearing to his ex-wife, so he didn't know much about Sophia. We even had this exchange back when we got married. Where is Sophia's health record? Where was it? Do we really need that? Of course we do. It has important information about her birth, vaccinations, and such, you know? Michael had absolutely no awareness as a parent. I had to search high and low for the record, only to find that more than half of the vaccinations that should have been done by age 3 were missing. I hurriedly made an appointment for the vaccinations and headed to the hospital. Admittedly, getting vaccinations is more of a best effort obligation, but in Michael's case, he had simply forgotten because he was too focused on work. I couldn't believe he could be so indifferent to these things despite working at a pharmaceutical company. Realizing I couldn't leave Sophia to him, I took the lead in caring for her. Taking care of adorable Sophia was no hardship, it made me happy. However, when I realized that she wasn't feeling her father's love despite still being so young, my heart felt like it would break from the pain. Does Dad not like me? That's not true at all. Dad is just busy with work, but he cherishes you very much. Yeah, you're right. Thanks, Mom. Just hearing her call me Mom made me so happy. However, around the time Sophia turned 10, there was a small change in Michael. "I'll help make dinner too," he offered. For me, who had started working part-time again, that proposal was much appreciated. Maybe he finally felt that he needed to do something as a father and husband. It might be a bit late, but I decided to take him up on the offer. Thank you, Michael. Is it okay if I let you handle it on your days off? Of course. I'll show off my amazing skills. I'm looking forward to it. Michael, who had lived alone before marriage, was indeed skilled at cooking. My burden was greatly reduced and my distrust of him eased. I felt reassured that he did value our family after all. However, even though we were spending more time together at the dinner table than before, Sophia's demeanor changed next. Usually there was nothing wrong, but sometimes she would show her displeasure and take it out on me. At first, I didn't understand the reason. I consulted with her teacher at school, but they said there were no unusual changes, and that she was playing happily with her friends. She didn't seem to have any particular complaints about her school either. But after observing the situation for a while, I realized it. It seemed Sophia was occasionally experiencing poor health. That was causing her to be in a bad mood. She would sometimes get diarrhea and shut herself in the bathroom, be unable to get up in the morning, or conversely be wide awake and unable to sleep. Those bouts of poor health that occurred about once every 3 months made me think that maybe she should get some tests done, so I consulted Michael. But it's not like she has a constant health problem, right? Isn't it just feeling unwell on those particular days? Well, that's true, but besides, if it goes away quickly, it's nothing to worry about. It'll be fine. Emily, you're such a worrywart. Michael didn't seem to take it too seriously, making me think that maybe I was overthinking it. Indeed, it wasn't a constant issue, and the symptoms were all over the place. Even if I took her to the hospital, they'd probably just chalk it up to stress and prescribe some placebo medicine. But still. I'm going to bed now. Huh? It's only 7 o'clock, you know? I'm super sleepy, good night. I see. Good night. Rubbing her eyes, Sophia headed to her room without even taking a shower. Michael, who was washing the dishes, responded nonchalantly, "Early to bed, early to rise is a good thing. Good night." Doesn't he find it strange that our daughter is trying to go to sleep 2 hours earlier than usual? Thinking it might be pointless to consult him, I decided to take Sophia to a different hospital than usual the very next day. I entered the examination room with a sluggish Sophia, and was surprised to see an unexpected person there. Ethan! Emily? Long time no see. Looking back and forth between the medical record and me, Ethan narrowed his eyes. He had attended the same high school as me and was now working as a pediatrician at this hospital. I never expected to run into an acquaintance in a place like this. Ethan, who was bright, kind, and secretly popular in our class, hadn't changed at all. Feeling reassured by his gentle demeanor, I consulted him about Sophia's recent symptoms. There don't seem to be any particularly unusual changes in her body, but how about we run some tests if you'd like? Yes, please. At those words, Sophia, who was sitting next to me, made a displeased face and said, "Tests? Don't be like that. These are important tests to examine your body." Okay. Yeah, good girl for being so honest. Even though she's almost 11, she's still very much a child. Sophia, who couldn't help but laugh at my words, showed me her innocent expression. Ethan also smiled at the sight of us. You two really do look alike when you're like this. The spitting image of mother and daughter. At those words, Sophia and I couldn't help but look at each other, our faces turning red. Even though we're not related by blood, I guess we've grown to resemble each other after living together as a family. It made me feel all warm inside. Both Sophia and I were glad we came to this hospital today. The tests were over, and we were to come back another day to hear the results. I was happy that Ethan told us, if any concerning symptoms come up again, please come back, before we left. However, in the end, the test results showed no particular abnormalities. Every time Sophia experienced poor health after that, we would visit this hospital. Each time, Ethan would run tests for us, but it always ended with the cause being unknown. Michael showed a grim expression about that. Feeling unwell once every few months is pretty common for kids, right? Getting tested every single time. Isn't the hospital just ripping you off? But wouldn't it be terrible if something happened to Sophia? You really think so? You're just being strung along by the doctors. It made me angry that he hurled insults at Ethan instead of being worried. Even so, I endured it for Sophia's sake. The last thing I wanted was to fight in front of her. There's probably nothing that pains a child more than seeing their parents at each other's throats. The days continued on with Sophia's occasional bouts of poor health, the cause remaining a mystery. Before I knew it, Sophia had turned 12. Around the time I started thinking that maybe it really was just common health issues during the growth process, after a year of finding nothing, I went to the hospital as usual to hear the test results. While waiting in the waiting room, Ethan came up to me and called out to me. I followed him as he asked me to come with him, entering a certain private room. It was a bit of a cluttered place, seemingly used as a storage room normally. We've done a total of 5 tests over the past year or so, right? Yes. Don't tell me, did you find something wrong with Sophia in this test? Calm down. Ethan faced me, looking unusually stern as I grew agitated. Then, with a serious expression, he said this. I believe I know you well as a person. You're an honest, kind person who's a bit bad at lying. What's this all of a sudden, Ethan? Emily. This is advice from a friend. He said something unbelievable. You should get divorced from your husband right now. I've been testing your daughter, and actually, something terrible has come to light. What do you mean? I was surprised by the word divorce, but what he said next about Sophia stirred up my anxiety. Ethan continued speaking, his expression still serious. If you don't separate Sophia from him right away, something irreversible might happen. That's why I want you to divorce or separate and isolate her from him. Something irreversible? What could he possibly mean by that? Ethan immediately provided an explanation. On that first day you came in, we ran tests, remember? Actually, even back then, traces of sleeping medication had already been detected in her body. Sleeping medication? Has Sophia ever used sleeping pills or sleep inducers? I shook my head at his question. Ethan appeared to think for a moment, then opened his mouth again. What I'm about to say might be unpleasant for you, but I want you to listen calmly. According to Ethan, every time they ran tests, some kind of medicinal component was detected in Sophia's body. Be it laxatives, painkillers, sleeping pills. The possibilities were high that it was over-the-counter medication prescribed by family, but the medical questionnaire didn't mention giving her any medicine. Even in my account, I had brought her in for sudden health issues, and there were no reports of having given her medicine beforehand. Moreover, she would come in with diarrhea symptoms and laxative components would be detected, or sleeping pill components would be detected when she came in feeling sluggish and sleepy. It was clearly health problems caused by the side effects of medication. That led to suspicions that either parent was giving Sophia medicine, causing her to become ill. Of course, I was also included in those suspicions. However, in order to continue testing without my suspicion being exposed, the detection of medicinal components was kept hidden even from me. And in this 5th test, it was once again revealed that Sophia was always being given some kind of medicine. Upon receiving those results, Ethan had personally taken action for me. It was a risky move for a doctor, but as an old acquaintance and as a parent, it was also proof of how much he trusted me. If I recall, your current husband works at a pharmaceutical company, right? How do you know that? Sorry, but I checked your health insurance card. D Pharmaceuticals Incorporated. This company has had a bad reputation in the medical association for a while now. I had a bad feeling. It couldn't be. The blood drained from my face. My husband has been giving Sophia something. That possibility can't be ruled out. Sophia often comes in on Mondays or after holidays, so is there anything different on his days off? Anything different? When he said that, I realized something. On his days off, Michael always makes dinner without fail. Our home has a facing kitchen, so it's hard to see inside the kitchen from the living room. If he was doing something there, I might not have noticed. The credibility of what Ethan was saying and my suspicion towards Michael grew more and more. No way, he couldn't, even though he's her real father. But when I thought about his attitude during visits to his ex-wife's grave and his lack of interest in Sophia until recently, I couldn't say with certainty that it was absolutely impossible. If I weighed my desire to believe in Michael against my desire to protect Sophia on a scale, it was obvious which way it would tip. I want to protect Sophia. With my mind made up, I looked Ethan straight in the eye. I couldn't overlook this problem. A few days later, I promptly purchased a child monitoring camera online and decided to use it to check Michael's movements in the kitchen. I set it up camouflaged in a box so he wouldn't find it. Honestly, there was a small part of me that hoped nothing would be captured on it. My feelings for him hadn't cooled, and I wanted to believe that there was no way Michael, Sophia's real father, would do such a thing to her. However, that wish was shattered a month later. One evening, something went wrong with Sophia's body. She had diarrhea and kept rushing to the bathroom. Sensing that, I immediately checked the monitoring camera, and the worst possible scene was captured on it. Michael was preparing dinner in the kitchen as usual on his day off. When Sophia and I were out of the living room, he took something out of his pants pocket. It looked like powder in a small bottle. He put it into one of the bowls. That bowl was Sophia's dedicated soup bowl. He stirred the soup in a circular motion, as if to dissolve the powder into it. I couldn't see Michael's expression well from the camera. At the same time as the disbelief, anger welled up inside me at the thought that he would do such a thing. I can't believe he's giving our daughter something strange to drink. I saved that video, then headed to the freezer. On days when Michael cooked, I would freeze the leftovers of Sophia's meals. The leftover soup in Sophia's frozen pack, the components of the powder shown in that footage should still be in here. After checking it, I pushed it further back so Michael wouldn't find it. This was advice I received from Ethan. Video alone would only leave circumstantial evidence, so physical evidence was also needed. Suppressing the anger boiling up inside me, I prepared drinking water for Sophia, who had come out of the bathroom. "Are you okay, Sophia?" "Yeah. It's happened to me before, too. Maybe I just have a weak stomach." "I guess so. I wonder." Sophia looked miserable as she drank water, clearly exhausted. She thinks it's because of her own constitution. I swear in my heart that I don't want to hurt her any more than this, that I must protect her from those who would hurt her. Even if it's her blood-related father. And so, I gathered all the evidence and made preparations to talk to Michael. On a Saturday when Sophia had plans to hang out with her friends, I called out to Michael as soon as she left. "So, what is it? You said you wanted to talk about something important." Before that, as he sat on the sofa with his usual expression, I started the conversation with, "Are you hiding something from me?" "No, not just from me, from Sophia too." "What are you talking about?" For a moment, Michael's eyes darted around. "I didn't miss that." "I want you to take a look at this," I said, taking out my phone. I had also transferred the data I captured with the camera to my phone. The moment Michael put the powder in played on the screen. Seeing that, he looked surprised. I said in a strong tone, "What is the meaning of this? What in the world are you giving Sophia to drink?" "No way, it's a misunderstanding. This is a nutritional supplement. Look, it's a sample I got from my workplace." I had anticipated he would make such excuses, but to say it so smoothly. I clenched my teeth, thinking he had been planning ways to talk his way out of it even if he got caught. "It's no use telling such lies. I've already frozen the meal from that time and had the ingredients analyzed." "Frozen? Emily, what in the world did you?" "Laxative components were detected." "Are you giving children laxatives in the name of nutritional supplements?" "That's..." Michael's eyes were darting around even more. Angry that he was trying to lie, I relentlessly pressed on. "It's no use making excuses. Actually, every hospital test so far has discovered some kind of component. What? You said nothing was found in the tests. That's why you continued to mix in the drugs, is that it? Oh. At my words, Michael shut his mouth. That was as good as admitting it. It's not like I was lying when I said I was told nothing was found in the tests. I might have to thank Ethan for this. Thanks to him, even I, who's bad at lying, can face Michael like this with confidence. I asked Michael the thing I most wanted to know. Why are you doing this? What do you gain from doing something like this? He must have realized there was no more room for excuses. Michael let out a deep sigh and said something unbelievable. You're making a big deal out of this. I was just doing a little experiment on my daughter. The things I was giving Sophia to drink were prototypes in the experimental stages that the company was making. It's like a clinical trial. I didn't understand what he was saying. He didn't even seem guilty, so he might not actually feel that he did anything wrong. My face turned pale in an instant. You were giving Sophia things like that? How rude to call it things like that. It's the latest drug packed with our company's cutting-edge technology. Giving her that to drink is a good thing, if anything. A good thing. I slammed the table without thinking. You're saying it's a good thing to give her laxatives and cause diarrhea when she's not even constipated, or to give her sleeping pills and disrupt her lifestyle. Don't get so worked up. This is a necessary human experiment. Michael said with a carefree laugh. I felt a chill at his words. Maybe I'm dealing with a terrible person right now. A feeling like fear was born inside me, but I mustered up my courage. If I lose here, Sophia will be in danger. An experiment, that's what you just said, right? That you experimented on your daughter's body. That's right. It's hard to tell how much of which quantity will be effective with just animals. We could recruit people for clinical trials, but it costs money and takes effort. In that regard, if it's your own daughter, you can observe her usual condition and not be held responsible. It's an easy and inexpensive method, don't you think? My body was trembling, not trembling from fear, but from anger. I can't believe you made Sophia suffer for a reason like that. Don't screw with me. You're not a parent, and you're certainly not even human. That's going too far, Emily. The Michael in front of me right now doesn't look human. He reached out his hand to me and pleaded in an overly sweet voice. I love you. That's why I never gave it to you, right? You didn't give it to me because you knew it was dangerous? Then why did you give it to Sophia? Because Sophia is my daughter. If she's my daughter, it's only natural for her to cooperate with experiments, right? He's treating his own child like property. This person isn't a father, and he's certainly not even human. It's pointless to say anything more. I handed the documents I had been hiding to Michael, who had become impossible to talk to. This is getting us nowhere. Let's get divorced. Divorced? Of course, I'll be taking custody of Sophia. With this much physical evidence, it'll be difficult for you to get parental rights. And you just gave an unwavering testimony now, too. I then showed him the voice recorder I had been hiding along with the divorce papers. If I press the play button, Michael's hideous testimony will be heard again. I don't want to hear it more than necessary, so I stop it with the stop button. For the first time, he showed an agitated expression. No! I don't want a divorce. Now of all times, he's against divorce. I looked at him with cold eyes. I've already filled out my part. Now you fill it out too. But I love you, Emily. I don't love you anymore. I said it clearly. I don't have a shred of affection left for Michael, who only hurts Sophia. It'll be tough for Sophia from now on. But when he brings up keywords like human experimentation, I have no choice but to separate them. I don't want to, Emily. Fill it out without crying. Hurry up and fill it out. As Michael bawled his eyes out, I could feel my own emotions growing colder and colder. It's true that he loved me consistently, both before and after our marriage. But his affection is thoroughly twisted. There's no way I can accept that kind of affection. After making sure Michael had signed, I snatched up the divorce papers and left the house. I drove straight to a lawyer's office. It was open even on a Saturday morning. When I arrived, I tried to submit the papers. At that moment, I can't do this after all. I don't want a divorce. The instant I handed over the documents, Michael barged in. He must have followed me in his own car. He had already suffered complete mental damage. Not paying any mind to the eyes of the public, he desperately placed his hands on my shoulders as if clinging to me. Let's start over, one more time, okay? I'll never do anything like that again. Stop it, Michael. I was flustered, with so many people watching us. For them, this kind of family squabble might not be a particularly rare sight. However, when Michael tried to forcibly drag me away as I resisted, someone finally stepped in, unable to stand by and watch any longer. That person was Sophia. What are you doing here? Of all people, it was Sophia, the person involved in this incident. She stepped between me and Michael and swiftly moved to my side. I thought it would come to this. I got to the office ahead of you. Don't worry, I'm already prepared for this. I was utterly surprised by the sudden appearance of an ally. Actually, I had talked to Sophia about it beforehand. The hospital test results, the cause of her poor health up until now, and everything Michael had been doing. It pained me to tell her the truth, but as the actual victim, she had the right to know. When Sophia learned everything, she seemed surprised, of course, but also somewhat convinced. So that's why I only felt off on days when Dad cooked. You noticed? I'm not a little kid anymore, you know. Children grow up so much before you know it. Come to think of it, she'll be in junior high school next year. My daughter, who had grown that much. Feeling a little moved, I told Sophia that I would be having a discussion with Michael soon. I also told her that divorce might be a possibility then, but I hadn't told her that today would be the day. Yet clever Sophia must have figured it out. Maybe her promise to hang out with friends was a lie, too. She seemed to have left the house early and staked out this office. Sophia! Talk some sense into Mom. Tell her not to think such foolish things. Michael, still thinking Sophia didn't know anything, spouted such nonsense, but his shoulders twitched as he was pierced by Sophia's sharp gaze. Dad. I know everything. That's why I can't be with you anymore. A dad who gives weird drugs to his daughter is scary. The moment Sophia said that clearly and loudly, the atmosphere changed drastically. The murmuring grew louder, and the eyes of those around us turned severe. Hey. Did she just say something about being given drugs? That father? Isn't that bad? The voices of the residents who had come for procedures reached Michael's ears, and he turned pale. And then, excuse me, could I have a word with you? A police officer who happened to be there approached us. He grabbed the arm of Michael, who was trying to run away. I've been curious since earlier, but what your daughter just said really caught my attention. I'm sorry, but could you and your daughter also come with me? Yes. Things are getting pretty serious. But this might be a good turn of events. Michael, his arm still grabbed by the police officer, turned deathly pale. I didn't do anything. We'll hear the details at the station. Let's go there first, okay? Okay. Even Michael couldn't defy the intimidating police officer's glare. He meekly started walking beside him. He became as quiet as a borrowed cat, and just like that, he was put into a different police car than us and taken to the interrogation room. Sophia and I had our statements taken by a different police officer and submitted the evidence. The hospital was also contacted, and Ethan cooperated with his testimony. It became increasingly difficult for Michael to make excuses. In the end, Michael was arrested. The interrogation spanned several days. In between, I submitted the divorce papers again. I was also able to smoothly gain parental rights, which was a relief. Michael had indeed done something that bad. I also hurriedly went through the moving procedures. I thought I should move to a place Michael didn't know about while he couldn't move. Fortunately, there was a vacant house within the school district of the elementary school Sophia attends, so I signed a contract. However, I still had the anxiety that Michael might find us if he was released, since it was so close by. And if Michael barged in again. But that worry turned out to be unfounded. Amazingly, far from being released, Michael ended up being indicted. The reason was D Pharmaceuticals Incorporated, where Michael worked. During the interrogation of Michael this time, as they pressed him about things like drug management and experimental data, the misconduct of D Pharmaceuticals Incorporated as a whole came to light. Sloppy drug management, falsification of experimental data, manufacturing processes different from what was reported to the government. Each of these was of the utmost malice, and it was revealed that what started as a family dispute had an impact on the entire country. Taking this seriously, the police moved the handling of the case from the Community Safety Division's questioning of a suspicious person to one involving the entire organization. Michael, who held an important position within the company, was deemed to bear heavy responsibility and was immediately criminally charged. The misconduct of a major company dealing with pharmaceuticals became a big deal and was covered on daytime talk shows for a while as sensational news. I could only watch it in a daze from the other side of the screen. In the end, Michael as an individual was sentenced to a fine and 2 years in prison. I was deeply relieved that I had gotten a divorce from him, who had now become a complete criminal. If Ethan hadn't advised me to get divorced back then, our family might have had to endure the discomfort of being a household with a criminal relative. I feel bad for Michael, but I don't want to get dragged into it. I can't thank Ethan enough. I felt at ease about that, but there was one problem. Our income had plummeted. As much as I hate to admit it, our household had somehow gotten by on Michael's high income. I filed a lawsuit to have him pay child support, but there's no telling when it might stop coming. I also looked for a job as a full-time employee, but it wasn't easy to find one right away. At this rate, we're heading straight for poverty. As I was at a loss about our future finances, I received a call from an unexpected person. It was from Michael's mother, in other words, my mother-in-law. My mother-in-law lives alone, far away. She's a blunt person who doesn't interfere much with her son's family to begin with. Even when I, as her son's second wife, went to greet her, she didn't seem very interested. I don't know much about what kind of person she is. Over the phone, my mother-in-law said in a flat tone, "I'm sorry, Emily, for my son to do such a thing." No, it's not. Even if it was to protect Sophia, I'm the one who created the opportunity to corner Michael. I was aware of that and prepared to be blamed by her, his mother. However, she didn't seem to have any such intention. I should have opposed his second marriage. I agreed to it because I was worried about Sophia and thought it would be good for her to have a mother, but I've completely lost patience with him now. Saying that, my mother-in-law actually offered to give Sophia a gift before her death. I was surprised by the sudden offer. Is that really okay? It's fine. I've already saved up money for my old age, and I had intended to give the rest of my assets to Michael, my only son, but well. My mother-in-law spoke with a tone of regret. According to her, since then, she had been receiving frequent letters from Michael. I thought he might be sending letters of apology or concern to his mother from inside prison, but that wasn't the case. The contents were requests for money and arrangements for future work. I was also utterly amazed at Michael for burdening his parents even in his old age. If I give it to him, he'll probably use it for something weird anyway, right? In that case, I want to give it to Sophia, my granddaughter. Really? It seems I had misunderstood my mother-in-law. Even though she seemed uninterested in us, she was actually someone who properly worried about us. Of course, I'll keep this a secret from Michael. I'll just laugh it off and say I spent it all. Thank you so much. Even though I knew she couldn't see me, I bowed my head over and over while holding my phone. Of course, I can't just rely on this gift before her death. I also found a full-time job later and made a fresh start. As for Michael, he apparently went to his mother's place after being released from prison, but she had already entered a nursing home, so he couldn't find her. Of course he couldn't. I'm the one who handles the admission procedures. Also, Sophia and I had moved for the second time, before her advancement to middle school. After all, people who knew about the scuffle at the lawyer's office knew about it in that town, so we decided to take this opportunity to move far away. Sophia readily agreed, saying it was fine as long as it was from middle school. With this, Michael won't know the whereabouts of either his parents or his wife and child. I feel a little sorry for him, being abandoned by both, but I think it's because of his character, trying to do human experiments on his daughter. Those who don't cherish their family won't be cherished by their family. That's all there is to it. Michael embodied that. And time passed, and Sophia turned 18. Sophia, who has become quite close to being an adult woman, has long surpassed me in height. Today, she's leaving my house. Sophia, who's going to college in New York, is going to move there and start living on her own. Worried, I kept calling out to her at the front door before she left, and Sophia gave me a wry smile. I'm telling you, I'll be fine. Cherish your own happiness, okay? Then, she brought her face close to mine and whispered as if telling a secret. I've already given Ethan a push to ask you out. I think I can leave you in his hands. Bye. Smiling, Sophia waved her hand and left the house. Actually, Ethan has been looking out for us in various ways since then. Having meals together sometimes, giving presents to Sophia and me. I'm taken aback. She's really precocious. No, she's already 18, an adult. I'm happy about the words she gave me, showing her concern for me. Just the memories of spending time with Sophia, my beloved daughter who can be so kind and considerate of others, is enough to make me happy. Feeling satisfied, I looked up at the sky from the front door. There, a bright blue sky stretched out endlessly. Today's dinner is Anna's favorite, fajitas. I'm sure she'll love them. As I prepare the fajitas and set the table, envisioning Anna's joyful face, her eyes fill with excitement. But the next moment, after seeing the ingredients on the table, she suddenly looks downcast. Look, Anna, your favorite fajitas. Aren't you gonna eat? My husband asks, peering at Anna. But suddenly, she stands up from the table and heads straight to her bag, rummaging through it. As I watch her, puzzled, she pulls out a Tupperware container from her bag. Can I take this home? I always feel sorry for Mom, she says, beginning to pack some of the dinner into the container. We are stunned by her sudden action. What do you mean by that? Can you tell us? Richard asks calmly. Anna's face darkens. Mom gets yelled at by Dad if she eats. She says she can only eat leaves. We were shocked by Anna's words. Richard stands up quickly and rushes out of the house. I hurriedly try to stop him. Wait, where are you going? Without changing his expression, Richard picks up Anna and starts calling a taxi. Hurry up. We're gonna go talk to Thomas right now. We immediately head to my daughter's house in the taxi. What we saw there was. My name is Susan Jones. I worked as a preschool teacher, but I quit when I got married. I met Richard, my husband, when I was in my 20s, working as a preschool teacher. He was the son of a friend of my mother. Richard, an employee at a major company, was reserved and seemed unapproachable, but he was competent at his work. 8 years my senior, Richard had been unsuccessful in blind dates, with me being his 10th attempt. Having made it to the upper echelons of his company at a young age, Richard was well educated and had a high income. Richard was a bit difficult to approach, often quiet and not one to smile easily. He seemed to struggle with social interactions, mostly talking about work during our blind dates. Still, I gradually opened up to him, touched by his earnest efforts to share more about himself. I found out that he was more sensitive than I thought, a kind-hearted man who cared deeply about others. After our initial blind date, we started seeing each other more often. 3 months into knowing each other, he asked me to be his girlfriend. As our relationship deepened, we got married 2 years later, bought a house together, and built a happy home. We were living a fulfilling life. However, there was one issue that troubled us. 2 years into our marriage, we were still unable to have children. While our colleagues and friends who got married around the same time were already parents, we were not blessed with a child. Both of us loving children, we were often saddened by our inability to conceive. It was 5 years into our marriage, just when we were about to give up on having children, that we were blessed with our daughter, Harriet. We were overjoyed to finally be able to get pregnant. I remember feeling incredibly happy at the thought of finally becoming parents. Our lives began to shine when our long-awaited daughter, Harriet, was born. Everything in our life started revolving around her. Richard, usually busy with work, started turning down invitations from colleagues to come straight home for dinner, increasing our family time. On his days off, we even began taking trips, creating more family moments. We cherished our precious Harriet very much. As Harriet grew up and became a college student, she moved away from home. For us, still perceiving her as our little girl, this was a source of great anxiety. Richard was the most worried about her living alone. Is Harriet eating properly? She's fine. She always keeps in touch. The photos of every meal sent daily by Harriet, now living alone, became our sole source of joy. Around a year after she left, Harriet called with a cheerful voice, saying she had someone she wanted us to meet. Nervously, we met them during a long break when they visited our home. "I'm in a relationship with Harriet," said Thomas, a well-dressed man in a neat suit, who studied in the same department as her. They had hit it off in the same club and started dating. Though we were initially unsettled by Harriet's first boyfriend, we gradually warmed up to the friendly and cheerful Thomas. He started visiting our home with Harriet on several occasions. Since Harriet was our only child, we never had another. Perhaps because of that, we grew to love Thomas like a son. Richard and Thomas seemed to really get along, often going out for drinks together. Thomas and we connected like a real family. Then Harriet graduated from college and landed a job at a major corporation in the city. We were so proud of her and wholeheartedly supported her as she embarked on her career. A few months later, it seemed Thomas had proposed to her. Since their workplaces were far apart, they hadn't been living together. Harriet decided to marry, moved by Thomas's desire to always be together. With this, she chose to become a homemaker. She had wanted to continue working, but Thomas had expressed his wish for her to take care of the home. Accepting his words, Harriet quit her job to become a full-time homemaker. But at that time, we realized we should have known Thomas better. As a homemaker, Harriet supported the household and visited us about every 6 months. After marrying and living in the city, she couldn't come to see us often due to Thomas's busy work schedule. He seemed to have gotten busier with work after marriage, often staying late for overtime. Harriet told us about this in our daily phone calls, saying she waited for Thomas with dinner prepared late into the night. Though Thomas came home tired, Harriet's voice over the phone also sounded weary. "Are you getting enough sleep? It's good to wait for Thomas, but you can't neglect your health." Harriet assured me brightly that she was okay. However, she recently mentioned feeling a bit unwell, feeling sleepy every day and disliking the smell of foods she used to enjoy cooking. I never had this issue before. Harriet was sad that she suddenly couldn't eat the foods she loved, and I had a hunch about her condition. Worried about her health, I suggested she visit a doctor. At first, she was puzzled but trusted my advice and agreed to go. "I think something wonderful is about to happen to you." About a month later, Harriet called, saying she had something to tell me. Normally, she would schedule a call, but this unexpected call took me by surprise. "Hello? Is everything okay?" I asked, sounding concerned. Over the phone, I could hear Harriet's voice, unable to contain her excitement. I wondered what had happened. "I'm pregnant," she said joyfully. I clapped my hands in happiness. She was indeed pregnant. When she first mentioned not feeling well, it reminded me of the early symptoms I had when I was pregnant with her. It turns out she's about 2 months along and has already told Thomas. I was overjoyed to hear my only daughter's pregnancy news and congratulated her. The thought of having a grandchild made me incredibly happy. The idea that my daughter, whom I've cherished and raised, was going to be a mother herself was heartwarming. That evening, when Richard came home from work, I told him about Harriet's pregnancy. He cried tears of joy, more than I did. Having never seen him cry before, I was profoundly surprised. It feels like a dream that Harriet is going to be a mother. She was so little back then, Richard said with deep emotion, making me feel happy too. We had struggled to have children after getting married, so the news of our dear daughter being pregnant filled our hearts with warmth. Seizing the opportunity of Harriet's pregnancy, we frequently took several hours to visit her. Harriet, now without Thomas due to his work, had more severe morning sickness than I did. Realizing the physical strain on her, I got Harriet and Thomas's consent to help with household chores. Thankfully, Harriet's condition gradually improved with my help. A few months later, she safely gave birth to a baby girl. Since Thomas couldn't be there for the delivery, we were by Harriet's side instead. It seemed like she struggled every day, trying to juggle unfamiliar parenting and household duties in Thomas's absence. It must have been hard for Harriet, a full-time homemaker, to manage everything alone. When we saw Harriet starting to show signs of exhaustion from parenting, we made a suggestion to Thomas. Is it true there's a good house available? We told Thomas about a new single-family home. A friend of Richard's had built it but had to sell it suddenly due to a job transfer. Without any takers and about to put it up for sale, he consulted Richard. Knowing Harriet and Thomas had been considering buying a house since their marriage, Richard immediately brought it up. We also knew from Harriet that their current home was becoming too small, especially with the birth of their daughter, Anna. So, we proposed to Thomas that now was a great time to buy the house at a good price. It would mean moving a bit from the city to the countryside, but it was in the neighboring state, making it easier for me to visit Harriet. That was part of our thinking too. To our surprise, Thomas readily agreed, and Harriet and he decided to move into a single-family home. With the move decided, we too pitched in to help. On moving day, I noticed Harriet's complexion seemed a bit off, something I hadn't seen in a while. You don't look too well. Is something wrong? Harriet, hesitating, just shook her head and said it was nothing. Perhaps it was exhaustion from parenting. Don't overdo it. Even as a mother, you need breaks. Thank you, Mom. I'm fine, just a little tired. Harriet replied with a troubled smile. I watched her with concern, wondering if she disliked the new house. But seeing her return to her usual calm demeanor, I decided not to worry. After the move, it was easier for us to visit each other. Thomas had arranged a transfer at work to a location closer to the new house. We used to spend hours traveling to Harriet's house, but now Harriet herself comes to visit and stay at our house. Watching Anna toddle around the house, I realized she no longer resembled a baby. Each visit surprised us with her rapid growth. Anna's gotten so big lately, and it's tough keeping an eye on everything. Harriet sighed. Seeing her weary, I couldn't help but laugh. Reminded of how Harriet was as a child, always on the move, darting off the moment you looked away. Sharing this memory with Harriet, she smiled wryly and asked to stop reminiscing about the past. Now 3 years old, Anna quickly chased after anything that caught her interest. Watching her, I was constantly reminded of how fast children grow. Grandma, let's play over here. Anna's innocent smile reminded me of the time when she was born. The child who couldn't even run back then has grown so much. This made me feel a mix of happiness and a bit of sadness. Children grow up so fast, don't they? Maybe you'll have a second one soon? Stop it, Mom. That's not true. I joked. Harriet's face suddenly darkened at my words. She gave a brief, heavy response and ended the conversation. Since Anna's birth, I've noticed Harriet's complexion hasn't been great. She used to laugh and brush things off, but she never showed such a clearly gloomy expression before. What could be happening? I wanted to ask Harriet, but the conversation quickly moved on, and I couldn't find the right moment. Harriet and Anna used to visit us every 2 months. But after Anna turned 6, they stopped coming. They always used to talk to us at our house, but lately, it's been only phone calls. Harriet, who would usually talk about her parenting troubles, now coldly cuts off the calls. "I'm busy right now, sorry," she'd say without explanation before hanging up. I couldn't talk to Anna, whom I used to see so often, or even see Harriet's face. No matter how much I asked for a reason, she'd say nothing was wrong and end the conversation. Reluctantly, I tried calling Thomas, but his response was equally curt. "Sorry, I'm busy right now. Can we talk later?" After being abruptly cut off with a cold voice on the phone, it seemed nothing I said was getting through anymore. Richard also tried calling a few times after discussing it with me, but he got the same indifferent response. "What's going on with Harriet and her family? They used to come to our house so often," Richard said, looking downcast, and I nodded in agreement. We both felt uneasy about Harriet and Anna suddenly stopping their visits without any discussion. But a few days later, something changed. Previously, Harriet used to call, but now, it was mostly Thomas. One day, Thomas called to give us an update, but I happened to be out, so Richard answered the phone. "Is work keeping you busy? Anna must be quite grown up now, being a senior in kindergarten." Richard chatted casually, but Thomas seemed indifferent. Unable to hear his daughter and granddaughter's voices, Richard, losing patience, asked Thomas, "We haven't seen your faces in a while. When would be a good time for us to visit?" Thomas seemed reluctant and initially turned down the suggestion. However, Richard, not having seen Harriet or Anna's faces for over 2 months, insisted. Thomas kept saying he was too busy with work, but Richard kept persuading, saying they would just visit quickly and leave. Then Thomas made an unexpected proposal. "The summer vacation is coming up soon, right? I want to let Anna practice riding the train, so can she stay with you alone?" Richard was taken aback by Thomas's words. Just then, I returned home and overheard Richard on the phone discussing letting only Anna stay with us. We exchanged glances, deeply concerned. We felt uneasy about letting our still very young, 6-year-old granddaughter take the train alone. Despite my urging to reconsider, Thomas was adamant about Anna traveling alone for the experience, saying she could handle it. "Anna is 6 now. She'll be fine by herself," he insisted, leaving us unable to argue further. Of course, we wanted to see Anna, but I also really wanted to see Harriet, my daughter. I was concerned about her since she had been complaining about the difficulties of parenting, but in the end, Harriet didn't come, saying she was too busy with housework. So, it was decided that only Anna would stay at our house. Although I was saddened not to see Harriet, the thought of seeing Anna after such a long time made my heart leap. As the summer vacation approached, and the day arrived for Anna to stay over, we anxiously waited at the train station. As soon as she got off the train and spotted us, Anna ran towards us with a big smile. Reuniting with Anna after such a long time brought an overwhelming joy. "Grandpa! Grandma! I made it here all by myself," she reported happily. Seeing her growth, we hugged her tightly, our worries melting away. "You did great. We're so proud of you. We're so happy to see you after such a long time." We praised Anna for her brave solo train ride, and she shyly smiled in response. Savoring our long-awaited reunion, we stopped to buy Anna's favorite snacks on our way home. That day, we played until the evening, making up for the time we hadn't seen each other. After not being able to see Anna for just a few months, she learned to read and even read us a storybook she brought along. We started preparing dinner while cherishing her significant growth. While Anna was taking a shower, I prepared her favorite dish, fajitas. Seeing the table lined with her favorite ingredients, Anna, fresh out of the bath, was ecstatic and dug in eagerly. All my favorite things! Anna exclaimed happily, clinging to the table with a smile that made me happy too. As we sat down, Anna suddenly looked down. Puzzled, I tilted my head to look at her, and Richard, concerned, spoke up. Look, Anna, your favorite fajitas. Aren't you gonna eat? Richard asks, peering at Anna. But suddenly, she stands up from the table and heads straight to her bag, rummaging through it. As I watch her, puzzled, she pulls out a Tupperware container from her bag. Can I take this home? I always feel sorry for Mom. Suddenly saying that, Anna began packing the dinner into a container. Seeing me puzzled about why she needed to do that, Richard quickly asked for an explanation. What do you mean by that? Can you tell us? Anna, looking sad and casting her gaze downward, stumbled over her words in response to Richard's gentle inquiry. Mom gets yelled at by Dad if she eats. She says she can only eat leaves. I was left speechless by Anna's unexpected words. What could have happened to Harriet and her family during the time we couldn't see them? Unable to comprehend Anna's words, Richard suddenly stood up from his seat. Sensing something was amiss, he grabbed his smartphone and wallet and hurried out of the house. Wait, where are you going? I hurriedly tried to stop Richard as he dashed out of the house, calling out to him. But Richard, without changing his expression, picked up Anna and began hailing a taxi. Hurry up. We're gonna go talk to Thomas right now. After saying this, we hurriedly got into a cab that arrived a few minutes later. Richard, gripping my hand strongly, seemed unable to hide his surprise at the sudden turn of events. He reassured Anna, who was anxiously fidgeting with her fingers between us, telling her it was going to be okay. At that moment, Richard took a deep breath and looked at Anna. Grandpa and Grandma are going to give Mom and Dad a surprise visit right now. Can you help us so we can rescue Mom? Richard said, looking directly at Anna, who lit up and nodded eagerly at his words. Watching them, I took a deep breath and decided to change my mindset. Such a small child shouldn't have to be this sad. I repeatedly assured Anna that everything was okay as I comforted her. Do you know of any place in the house, like in the garden or something, where we can see inside? Can you tell us? Richard asked gently, and Anna, as if remembering something, nodded vigorously. I know. I'm really good at hide and seek, she declared confidently, puffing out her chest, and Richard hugged her tightly. About an hour later, we arrived at the house and decided to observe the inside from behind the exterior wall. The lights inside seemed to be still on, and we could see into the living room. Anna, with excited breaths, guided us, saying this way. We ran to a spot in the shadow of the trees in the yard, smartphones in hand. Anna, perhaps finding the outdoor hide and seek fun, beamed with joy. My heart ached seeing her like this, and I hugged her protectively. Our hiding spot was right in front of a small window covered with a screen. We could clearly see into the living room, and Richard quickly got his smartphone ready. Suddenly, we heard a loud voice yelling from inside the house. Richard pointed his smartphone towards the source of the noise and started recording a video. It appeared that Thomas was yelling at Harriet inside the house. A chill ran through my body as I saw Harriet, who looked like a completely different person from before. Her once glossy long hair had turned into an unkempt, tangled mess. Moreover, she had become terribly thin, her face pale and drawn. As I stared in shock, Richard frowned with frustration, continuing to record the scene. Thomas's yelling was loud enough to reach us outside, causing Anna to tremble. It seemed to be a regular occurrence. That our beloved daughter and granddaughter were subjected to such cruelty was infuriating. I bit my lip in rising anger. Then, as Thomas's voice grew louder and he raised his hand at Harriet, Richard dashed out. Stop it right now! What are you doing? Richard shouted towards the window, drawing Thomas and Harriet's attention to us. What? Why are you here? Thomas began to panic. Seizing the moment, Harriet unlocked the screen door and threw herself into my arms. She had become so frail that I hesitated to embrace her. It's not what it seems. There's a reason for this. Thomas, realizing he was at a disadvantage, started making excuses, but Richard glared at him. Be quiet. None of that matters now. Our daughter's life is the top priority. Richard yelled back, his voice raising in anger, leaving Thomas pale and lost for words. I stepped forward protectively in front of a frightened Anna and Harriet. Meanwhile, Richard kept watch to make sure Thomas didn't do anything. We watched as an ambulance arrived and took Harriet to the hospital. Immediately afterward, Richard contacted the police to report that his daughter was a victim of abuse. The police arrived promptly, and Richard provided them with the video he had recorded. As a result, Thomas was arrested on the spot and taken to the police station. A house search began, and Anna gave testimony that Thomas had been regularly hitting Harriet. Inside the house, the police found Thomas's diary, which detailed his regular abuse of Harriet. The diary revealed his dissatisfaction with Harriet not returning to her pre-pregnancy figure after giving birth to Anna. Thomas had been forcing Harriet to follow an extreme diet, monitoring her weight daily, and controlling her meals rigorously. The diet included things like only 3 leaves of lettuce per day. It was then that we finally understood the meaning behind Anna's earlier statement about only being allowed to eat leaves. Initially, Harriet resisted and showed defiance to Thomas, but she would be beaten if she ate anything other than the diet food. Frightened, she eventually complied. Thomas's diary even mentioned how Anna tried to intervene to help her mother, and got hit for her efforts, leading to Harriet no longer resisting. From the police, we learned the extent of the terrible ordeal Harriet and Anna had been through. The regret was unbearable. According to the police, Thomas was deeply remorseful. But there was no doubt he would face a prison sentence for his abuse of Harriet and Anna. We held a left-alone Anna tightly, comforting her. Later, Harriet and Thomas got divorced. All of Thomas's actions had come to light, leading to his prosecution. After that, we started living together with Harriet, who was still recovering her health. Anna was overjoyed to live with us permanently. Being free from Thomas's regular abuse, Harriet slowly began to recover her health. Her once emaciated body started to fill out, gradually returning to a healthy shape. I caused so much trouble for you both, Harriet said with a look of guilt, but I shook my head. I never wanted to see Harriet that thin again. With this determination, we continued to care for our precious daughter, and now she had fully regained her former self. To celebrate Harriet's recovery, we laid out fajitas on the table, the meal we missed on that day. Anna's eyes sparkled with joy at the sight of the spread. There's so much. We can eat a lot. Yes, it's wonderful to be able to eat to our heart's content, Harriet said. Watching the two of them devouring the fajitas, we wished for this peaceful life to continue forever. I'm getting remarried to a new bride. Thanks for everything up to now. Jack said this with a cheerful smile. Standing next to him, his mother-in-law also added with a full smile. You're getting a divorce and moving out. It seems like in Jack and his mother-in-law's minds, the decision to welcome his lover as his new wife was already a done deal. So, I'm being kicked to the curb. But honestly, I'm not bothered. I knew sooner or later this would happen. Jack is head over heels for his mistress, and his in-laws have fully accepted her. Of course, I haven't just been sitting quietly. I had a surprise prepared for when this moment came. So, Jack, are you ready? My name is Samantha. I'm 35 years old. I married Jack when I was 27. Currently, we live together in an apartment. Let's have kids when we're a bit more financially stable. That's what he's been saying for years now. Before I knew it, both Jack and I have gotten older. I desperately want to have children now. And just as I was thinking this, it happened. I realized Jack was having an affair. Jack has always been bad at lying. I've got to work late today. That's become his recent go-to excuse. But it's obvious that he's lying if you look at the pay stubs. On his days off, he'd leave the house all by himself, looking eager. Could he be cheating? That's what I immediately thought. But somewhere in my heart, I still believed in him. I married Jack because I loved him so much. I thought he felt the same way. So, I decided to confront him. I hoped if I asked him to stop the affair, he'd agree. But then, why do you think I'm cheating? This happened over dinner. As we faced each other and I started to speak, Jack frowned. I quickly said, "You've been making excuses to leave the house recently, haven't you? Is that all you've got to suspect me?" Jack was furious. But at that moment, I felt relieved inside. Jack wasn't cheating after all. It was my doubt that made him angry. I thought to myself, how naive I was. It's that attitude of yours. What? I hate how suspicious you are, Samantha. That's probably why I was drawn to her. To her? My voice trembled. My heart was racing. Could he really be having an affair? I leaned forward on the table. Who is she? A junior at my workplace. She's honest and kind, nothing like you. Jack said, suddenly looking happy. Life would be so much better with her. A young girl wouldn't be interested in you, I said, trying to convince myself. Jack is already in his 40s. And not doing well financially. I used to be a model when I was young, Jack retorted. That's right. Jack had a brief stint as a model in his youth. He's told me this story many times. He's still tall and hasn't lost his figure. His features are handsome. He could pass for someone in their late 20s or early 30s. But at his company, his real age is known. As I was thinking, Jack declared, "How can I be with a wife who doubts me this much? It's divorce, divorce." He thrust a piece of paper at me. A divorce paper. Is this a joke? I'm serious. Goodbye, Samantha, he said, and walked out of the house. Would he stay at a friend's house, or? I held the divorce papers, feeling dejected. The next early morning, Jack returned. Maybe because of yesterday, he was trying to be quiet. He seemed to be there to grab his bag and clothes for work. Jack? What is it? He stammered, stepping back as if scared. To him, I handed a lunchbox. Jack looked at me, surprised. I made lunch. I realized I hadn't made it in a while. If you'd like, please eat it. Okay, I will. He said, though without a word of thanks, but he seemed pleased. I felt satisfied. Good. There's still a chance to make things right. The divorce papers from yesterday, maybe Jack wasn't serious after all. That's what I thought. But then, I was utterly shattered. Why? The lunch I made was thrown away, untouched, in the trash. I had lunch with a colleague, Jack said, sitting down. And what about dinner? How can you say that after throwing away the lunch I made? I couldn't stay calm. You could have eaten it later or at least not thrown it away. Well, Jack said with a wry smile. Your lunch is just lame. Lame. Yeah. It's so lame I can't bring it out in public. And then, Ashley. Who's Ashley? I shouted, even though I knew she was Jack's affair. She's a junior at work. She makes lunch for me every day. It's stylish, unlike yours. So you threw mine away. I couldn't look at it after seeing her lunch. Yours is just. Jack laughed mockingly. With a condescending look. I was certain now. It's unheard of for just a colleague to make lunch every day. There was no doubt left. Jack, too, seemed to have become defiant about it. He started openly mentioning another woman's name at home. I'm going back to my parents' house this weekend, Jack suddenly said. I was puzzled. Do we have something planned this weekend? Just leave it, Jack said, dismissing my opinion and ending the conversation. Then, on the weekend, I went to Jack's parents' house. There, I saw a woman I didn't recognize. This is Ashley. Nice to meet you. The woman, Ashley, said with a smile. She was as charming as Jack always praised. Just the type of person Jack would be attracted to. Why is she here? I confronted Jack with a perfectly valid question. He laughed and said, I'm introducing her to my parents. She's going to be the new wife. What? I was stunned. The new wife. While I'm still here? Like I said before. Jack continued with a face that showed no guilt. Samantha, you are too suspicious and lacks taste. You're just not right for me. What are you talking about? I was at a loss for words. What kind of person says such things? What kind of person can even think to utter those words? Ashley started speaking. Her head bowed in what seemed like apology, but then she dropped a bombshell. I'm pregnant. I'm finally going to be a father. Jack said, hugging Ashley with a happy smile. Unconsciously, I found myself stroking my own belly. I can have children, too, you know? Yeah. But if I'm going to have kids, I want them to be good-looking. That's why you're out of the running. How can you say that? All this time, I had believed in Jack's words, lived by them. But from the beginning, he never intended to have children with me. A child with Ashley would definitely be cute. Jack said proudly. Ashley looked at me with a troubled expression. Jack's mother, who had been watching, glanced at me with a sharp, scrutinizing gaze. You don't have any objections, do you? No. I could only nod. Jack spoke to me with a cold voice. Even though he was smiling. I wondered how he could sound so icy while smiling. I'm getting remarried to a new bride. Thanks for everything up to now. You're getting a divorce and moving out. Jack's mother stood next to him, also with a full smile. They planned to kick me out and welcome Ashley as the new wife. And I was being discarded. I sighed. Honestly, I had a hunch when Jack said we were going to his parents' house. I suspected it might come to this. More so, from the moment Jack started talking about Ashley at home, I knew. I knew our relationship would end soon. Now, that premonition had become reality. It can't be helped. I had made up my mind. After all, I had a surprise prepared for this day. Taking a deep breath, I said, What? I'm already divorced, and that woman. What? The room went silent. Jack, with a twisted face, retorted. That's a poor excuse for losing. Already divorced? You and me? Yes. After all, you gave me the divorce papers. I was surprised at how calm my voice sounded. Yes. I was composed now. I wouldn't be deceived by Jack's words or smiles anymore. That divorce paper had your signature. So, I signed my name too. Though, in truth, I had only submitted it after it was decided we were visiting his parents' house. I had resolved that it was over with Jack. Still, I hadn't expected him to bring Ashley to his parents. So, you and I are already divorced. What? Well, that's convenient. Right? I thought the same, so I took care of it beforehand. Jack seemed pleased with my foresight. Nice preparation. Thanks, Samantha, for divorcing me. Now I can be with Ashley without any worries. You're welcome. It might have been the first time Jack had ever thanked me. I felt a sense of emptiness. Until recently, I had loved this man. I really had no eye for people. But Jack was no better in that regard. You can't remarry, you know. What? Why not? Because she's already married. What? Jack was shocked by my words and looked at Ashley. In a desperate tone, he asked her. You're joking, right? Ashley, you were going to be with me. I have no intention of being with you. Ashley stated firmly. Both Jack's mother and Jack were stunned. Their eagerly anticipated plan had fallen apart. Why? Because you were just a fling. Ashley said with a troubled, yet sharp tone. I did say I was pregnant, but I never said it was your child. You jumped to conclusions. I was wondering what to do. After saying this, Ashley looked at me. Thank you. It's good that you're a woman with your act together. No. I responded with a wry smile. It was like a poorly written comedy. The woman Jack had deemed worthy was already married to another man. I wondered how Jack felt now. Well, I should be going now, I said. Wait, Ashley! Ashley! Jack tried desperately to call her back, but Ashley didn't look back. Jack's mother was so shocked that her dentures almost fell out. Jack was devastated for a moment, then turned his sharp gaze on me. What's this all about, Samantha? I hired a detective to investigate. They found out she was married. By the way, about her husband. Now it was my turn to be cheerful. I said it with a sense of triumph. So, her husband is your boss. What? Don't lie. Ashley and the director never even make eye contact at work. Jack protested, his voice desperate. It saddened me. He had never been this earnest for me. They're just keeping it professional at work. I retorted, dismissing Jack's claim. Jack was holding his head in his hands. Ashley is married to the director. What's going to happen to me if this gets out? Don't worry, I said with a meaningful smile. The more my heart ached, the more my face broke into a smile. I've already talked to the director about everything. What have you done? Jack was almost in tears. The embarrassment with Ashley was just the beginning. The real show was about to start. My son is the victim. His mother lamented. Deceived by that woman, and now betrayed by you. He might lose his job over this. If that's the case, I was the one deceived by your son. I said with a strained smile. My lips trembling slightly. I genuinely loved Jack. I was happy to be married to him. The ones who destroyed that happiness were Jack, Ashley, and myself. Then, it's over. Jack chose someone else over me. I respect his decision. I see. Jack's mother, facing my smile, slumped to the ground, overwhelmed. Huh? At that moment, Jack's phone rang. He checked the caller ID and went pale. Director Farley. How convenient. I said, urging him to answer the phone. Better answer quickly before things get worse. Who do you think is to blame for this? Well, I said matter-of-factly. It's all your own doing. Being played and not even realizing it. Besides, didn't you notice that Ashley and the director have the same last name? Ah. Jack's face turned even paler. He looked at me several times as if seeking help, but I did nothing. Tentatively, Jack answered the phone. Director Farley. You. What are you doing with my wife? The director's voice was so loud I could hear it from where I stood. She's pregnant. And you. Ashley came on to me. Jack retorted. But that was a mistake. I see. Director. I'm sorry, I spoke ill of your wife. It's not what you think, Enough. Don't ever come to the company again. I don't want to see your face. Director. Jack's apologies were in vain, the call ended. He slumped to the ground, just like his mother. It's a lie. This can't be true. I wish you had told me it was a lie. I found myself saying my true feelings out loud, unable to contain my emotions despite trying to remain calm. Do you have any idea how I felt when I was sure you were cheating on me? I don't care about that. Jack spat out dismissively. It's your fault for being so unattractive and suspicious, yet letting yourself go. I was busy with all the housework because you never helped. I shouted back. I didn't have time to dress up or buy cosmetics. I prioritized our living expenses over my own needs. Do you understand that? It's your fault for being bad at managing your time. Jack refused to accept any blame. Stop blaming everything on me. You cook the same bland meals every day. How is that expensive? That's the cooking I learned from my mom. Don't talk badly about it. I couldn't keep the smile on my face any longer. I was genuinely angry. Probably for the first time at him. I had always been afraid of being disliked by Jack and held back my true thoughts. But things were different now. We were nothing to each other anymore. I would say what I wanted to say. You always talk big but leave the troublesome matters to me. Why don't you face reality for once? What did you say? Enough! Jack's mother, who had managed to stand up, intervened, looking pained. Both of you, just go home. I can't stand any more of this commotion. Mom, are you abandoning me too? Jack cried out in anguish, but his mother ignored him. I left the house alone, catching a taxi. Jack and I parted ways without giving in to each other. Well, with a heavy heart, I called my mother and explained the situation. She sounded sad. Jack turned out to be such a person. What will you do now? I haven't decided yet. I replied truthfully, unable to hide my real feelings despite not wanting to worry her. I'll stay with you for now. After a few days, I'll find an apartment or something and move out. There's no need for that. My mother reassured me with concern. You've done enough already. Just relax at home, okay? Okay. I decided to take her advice. When I got home, my sister and her husband were there too. Big sis, are you okay? You look awful. I'm fine. I won't have to go through anything unpleasant anymore. I replied, forcing a smile. My sister had just given birth to her first daughter. Looking at the sleeping baby in her arms and her husband watching them, tears came to my eyes. Sis. Sorry. Really, it's nothing. I had parted ways with Jack. I wouldn't be troubled by him anymore. I was free. Yet, I couldn't stop the tears. Samantha. Yeah. I responded as my mother led me down the hallway. Go to your room. It's been cleaned and ready for you. Thank you, Mom. I replied, heading to my room. The room was just as clean and welcoming as my mother had said. It had been years since I last stayed here, but it felt as comfortable as if I had spent the previous day here. My mother must have kept it clean all this time. While feeling grateful, I lay down on the bed. For the next few days, I experienced peaceful moments. The peace was disturbed when I saw someone standing at the front door. Samantha. You're there, come out. What do you want? I asked, feeling exasperated as I faced Jack. In just a few days, Jack looked haggard. He had always relied on me for housework and clearly couldn't cook for himself. His disheveled appearance suggested he might have lost his job too. Yet, he still spoke in that sweet tone. Samantha, can't we start over? What? His tone used to charm me. But now it just made me shudder. To think I was deceived by such a man and lived with him. In that moment, I realized I had no feelings left for Jack. Don't say things you don't mean, I replied sternly. But Jack didn't give up. I want to start over. The thing with Ashley changed me. I won't cheat again. Let's go to another town and begin anew. Oh, really? I was incredulous. How could he so effortlessly say things he didn't mean? I saw right through Jack's intentions. He still saw me as a convenient housekeeper, nothing more. That's why he wanted me back. Nothing else. He didn't care about me at all. What happened to Ashley? She got a real talking to from her husband. Turned out he's not even sure if the baby is his, so she got kicked out. Oh, how fortunate for you, I said sarcastically. Now you can be with Ashley. She was just using me. There's no way I can be with her, Jack exclaimed, making himself out to be the victim. Even now, he was trying to use me. She got what she deserved. And she'll probably just deceive another man. It's infuriating. I hope she doesn't find anyone else. Jack said with evident hatred. It seemed that he had shifted all the blame onto Ashley. And because of this, he didn't see himself as at fault. He had the audacity to try to come back to me, showing no signs of learning from his mistakes. Sorry, but I made my intentions clear. I can't live with you anymore. I've come to despise you from the bottom of my heart. Don't be so tough, Samantha. You still have feelings for me, don't you? I was speechless at his self-conceited words. How could he still harbor the illusion that I had any lingering feelings for him? I'm serious. I really do hate you. Samantha! Jack stepped closer. And I shouted. Mom! Call the police! What, Samantha? I can't deal with you anymore. We're over. Understand? I heard my mother's footsteps approaching. Neighbors, alerted by my loud voice, started to appear, all glaring at Jack. I'll come back. Don't bother. After that, Jack didn't show up in person, but called incessantly. I want to start over. Samantha, live with me again. Are you joking? I'm serious. I can't live without you. He was right in a way. He never helped with household chores. During his single days, it seemed that his own mother took care of everything for him. By the way, I remembered something. Once, I went back to the apartment. Not for Jack, but to retrieve my belongings. There, I stumbled upon Jack and Ashley arguing. So, I've left my husband. I'll be with you now. Don't joke. You were just kicked out. In that manner, Jack and Ashley were causing a commotion. Ignoring them, I was about to leave, when Jack noticed me. Samantha! You came back! I stopped him. I'm just here for my things. You came because you're worried about me, right? Wow, how conceited can you be? Ashley muttered in disbelief. Jack turned to scold Ashley, then focused on me again. Samantha, let's live together again. We'll remarry, and this time, I'll call the police if you come closer. Jack faltered but quickly recovered. Please, Samantha, forgive me. I'll help with chores and never look down on you again. No more cheating. That's for sure. You were just being played. What? Jack's face twisted in anger. Enough, Samantha. I'm going this far, and you're still ignoring me. I'm not ignoring you. I'm just not interested. Ashley burst out laughing. To her, I said, Can you raise a child on your own? That's none of your business. Ashley replied, frowning. The charm and ease she had shown at Jack's parents' house were gone. Sure. I nod. Let me just say this. I couldn't have kids of my own. That's why I'm envious of you. Ashley says, putting her hands on her hips. Her eyes were challenging, sizing me up. But really, I was the one who should be doing the assessing. That's why I'm worried about your baby. Leave me alone. She retorts, clearly annoyed, and gently rubs her belly. I'm gonna raise this child in my own way. Is that so? I smile, relieved. Ashley might have trouble in her relationships, but she seemed prepared to be a mother, at least. That's good to hear. You don't need to worry about me. See ya. She says and briskly walks away. Meanwhile, Jack is yelling, Don't ignore me. Samantha, Move aside. I need to get my stuff. Samantha. Jack tries to garner sympathy with a pitiful voice, but I snap at him. Move. Whoa! He says, frightened, and steps aside. I entered my former residence. There was no sense of nostalgia, just familiarity with the layout. I easily navigated the rooms and collected my belongings. When I stepped outside, Jack was standing there, looking lost. I glanced at him and left the apartment. I decided to settle down at my parents' place. Being the eldest daughter, I knew I'd eventually have to return to take care of them. It made sense to get used to living there again. Now, I help with household chores and the garden. Sometimes, my sister and her husband visit with their daughter. She's so cute, I say, laughing yet feeling a tinge of sadness inside. Not having children of my own was still a painful reality for me. Hey, do you remember Steve, our childhood friend? My mom asked one day, speaking cautiously. What happened to Steve? Well, he's still single. How about meeting him, just the two of you? Mom, I say with a bitter smile. I appreciated her concern. But I was done with marriage. Wouldn't it be a bother for someone like me to be with Steve? But you know. Mom leans in. Steve mentioned wanting to see you when he heard you were back. Really? I responded in surprise. Steve was chubby since childhood and frankly, not very good-looking. But he was attentive and kind. He's now teaching at our old middle school. I'm not sure. I was ambivalent. I wanted to meet Steve, but the idea of it being a setup felt odd. A few days later, I found myself walking through a mall in the neighboring town with Steve. I'll carry the bags. It's okay. I reply, feeling a bit embarrassed and unintentionally being curt with Steve. But Steve, always gentle, accepts me as I am. Though he looks different from the person I remember. He's slimmed down, taller, and has a more dependable presence. Sorry, Samantha, for inviting you out so suddenly. About that. I start as we take a break at a cafe. After ordering, I finally voice my question. Why did you want to meet me? Well. Steve hesitates for a moment. Then sets his face with determination. When I heard you got married, I was shocked. That's when I realized I had always liked you. Steve. An awkward silence falls between us. Unsettling but not unpleasant. It feels strangely nostalgic to be attracted to someone. After dating Steve for 6 months, we got married. Unlike my flashy wedding with Jack, Steve preferred a quiet ceremony with just close family and friends. I liked that idea too. Since my parents' home is nearby, I can visit them almost every day. Steve is a hard worker, beloved by his students. So, one of my students. That sounds tough. I reply, laughing together as we gather around the dinner table. Featuring vegetables from our garden. We stock up on meat and seasonings during weekend supermarket trips. Our new life's rhythm gradually falls into place. Samantha. What's up? Have you thought about kids? Oh. I pause, realizing. Steve loves children, and I still want them. Yeah, I've thought about it. That's good to hear. He says, smiling with relief. 1.5 years later, I finally have a child. I hoped the baby would look like Steve. But instead, they're a spitting image of my mother. Causing our entire family to burst into laughter. Let's name her Kate. I like that. Steve repeatedly calls out to our child, Kate, Kate. I hold Kate and walk through the garden. With Steve by my side. Gentle, kind Steve. I wonder why I didn't choose him in the first place. Steve. What's up? Thank you for waiting for me. Samantha. Steve's eyes moisten with emotion as he pulls me into a hug. In his arms, our daughter, Kate, giggles happily. I'm sorry I didn't have the courage to speak up sooner. Because of that, you went through a lot of hardship. It was my lack of judgment. After all, that's the truth. My most important person was right here beside me all along.